Hey now, yeah, good morning, PASW staff, clients, friends joining us for a lovely Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Not a good one, a great one. That's all. I'm only here for greatness. This is Film Score Monday, where we look at a scene and I take out the music and then you give me the best possible score. We're getting better and better. Get Out was fantastic on Friday. That was really fun seeing that. And of course, there's a prize each month of not, we're all winners, but there's a real winner. So that's given each month. So just remember, play along. It's never too late. I'm always here. You can call me, you can fax me, you can send in CDs or CD-ROMs. I'm just excited because we're going to be talking about we're going to go back in time a little bit because we got to do the classics too. Classics are important. We're going to go back to we've talked about the new Hollywood, and which was late 60s. Pretty much started with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, but we're not doing Bonnie and Clyde. So, but we're going to do something close to that. It was really iconic breakthrough movie that came out. That was that was pretty big. So today we're going to look at the classic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So it's a Western buddy film, but it's not anything like John Ford Westerns or John Wayne Westerns either. I mean, these were not the Westerns in the 30s and 40s. Like I said, this is part of the new Hollywood era where, and what do I mean by that? Is that just a fancy term I'm throwing? No, what I mean by that is that the studio heads lost power over these young new directors that said, I can make, if you give me a few $1 million, I can make a personal movie for the young kids, and it's going to make you a lot of money in return. And that's exactly what they did. They were extremely talented. We looked at William Friedkin. He was part of it. Arthur Penn was part of it. Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper. Those guys, Roger Corman, those guys took over. The auteur took over, just like the auteur in the French New Wave in the 50s. The director was in charge. It wasn't the studio heads, for better or worse. I mean, that was good. So this comes out in 1969. It wins 4 Academy Awards: Best Cinematography, Best Original Score for Motion Picture, Burt Bacharach, and Best Original Screenplay and Best Song. And it has 2 of the most famous guys in history: Robert Redford, who was 33 in this, and Paul Newman, who was 44 when he filmed this. Robert Redford is the Sundance Kid, and that's why he named the Sundance Film Festival after that role, because they didn't really want him. He was pretty young, unknown, and they were thinking of Dustin Hoffman, other the same old people, the same old younger actors that you have to think about it at a time. They're huge, but everyone starts off as nobody, or nobody starts off as somebody. You know what I mean? Directed by George Roy Hill, great director who directed both of them in The Sting in 1973. That won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. That's a really fun one too. Screenplay by William Goldman, who did a whole lot of great screenwriting, and he had written this like 7 or 8 years before, just because he was fascinated with the true story of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is, let's back up. I mean, if I'm talking about New Hollywood and all this stuff, let's just back up before I tell you. 1969, a year that actually nothing happens. I couldn't think of anything that happened in 1969. No, it's probably one of the most important years of the 60s. I mean, 60s was probably the most important decade in terms of, you know, civil rights and music and all that stuff. But 69 in particular, what's going on? Apollo 12 lands, so that's the second manned moon mission. Launches and lands on the moon. Woodstock happens. More than 355,000 hippies, and Jimi Hendrix is going to perform, and people are going to get their start there. PBS starts, public broadcasting, which is still thriving today. And Ted Kennedy drives a car and plunges into a pond and kills a woman of a passenger. That's the Chappaquiddick affair happens in 69. A horrible person, Charles Manson, tells his cult followers to kill these people in the Hollywood Hills on August 9th. One of those people was Jay Sebring, who actually did Paul Newman's hair on this movie, so died just a month before this movie came out, so that's a little strange. Richard Nixon becomes president of the United States. Movies, what other movies are coming out? Funny Girl makes a huge splash. Midnight Cowboy is the first movie to have an X rating because it's so adult-like. Easy Rider comes out too, and these are movies that are important. Some are worth watching, some are just important historically because they changed the way movies were made after that. So let's get our map. Let's go from Hollywood to Utah, because that's where they filmed Butch Cassidy. Most of it. I mean, they filmed the Bolivia scenes in Mexico, but Utah is kind of where they're going to be filming this. So loosely based on a true story. I mean, these two guys, along with their gang, robbed a lot of banks, train robberies, and tells the story of these outlaws. Robert Leroy Parker, known as Butch Cassidy, who's Paul Newman, and then his partner, Harry, who's the Sundance Kid, who's Robert Redford, and they're on the run mostly the whole movie, just from a long string of train robberies that they've been successful at. And the pair, Sundance has a lover, who's the lovely Catherine Ross in it, and they're on the run, and they go to Bolivia in search of a more successful criminal career.
Raindrops keep falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some talking to the sun, and I said I didn't like the way he got things done, sleeping on the job. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. But there's one.
As we're seeing, the film has really a lot of notable scenes and famous ones, in, you know, the bicycle scene with Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, which nobody wanted, including Robert Redford. They said, why? That song has nothing to do with this. Interesting thing. So we've talked about Burt Bacharach. We did a whole class on Burt Bacharach and how he was classically trained and what was different about him. He had melody, but he also had some unusual chord progressions. He used a lot of jazz harmonies, a lot of jazz influence, a lot of syncopation, but then using those elements, writing good melodies. So it wasn't just kind of, you know, 2-3 chord songs with just the same time signature. They were syncopated. They were in more like jazz chord progressions, but still great melody on top of that. That's kind of why he's still alive. Why he's considered one of the greatest songwriters and composers of the 20th century. But interesting part about this score in this movie is that it's, first of all, there's not that many Western sounding theme songs in this, it's not a Western score. Maybe that's good, because people still listen to the soundtrack today, and if you put the soundtrack on at a party, which I know a lot of you guys have done, it's not like, why are we listening to Western music? So that's a good part, because if it's good music, it can be used for any occasion. If it's just a strictly Western soundtrack, there's nothing wrong with that, then it just fits well with the movie. But this isn't really a Western soundtrack, especially the scene we're going to be looking at. We'll get to we'll get to the kind of music that I want you to use, but that's kind of the soundtrack to this is atypical, and it's also atypical because it doesn't. A lot of the action isn't scored with music. A lot of the fights, there's a knife fight. There's kind of these famous action sequences, but they're not scored with music.
Rules in a knife fight? No rules. What?
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started. Someone count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
I was really rooting for you, Butch.
Well, thank you, Flatnose.
That's part of also the new Hollywood, where they're not going to be doing conventional things in the sense of, hey, here's a fight scene, we're going to need fight music. And a new Hollywood approach could be, here's a fight scene, we're going to use no music, realistic sounding, and then maybe we'll do a montage with music. So they're mixing everything up. They're coming up with new ideas of filmmaking, not really on purpose. They're just being individual thinkers. I mean, this is just, how artists think. They're not sitting there really necessarily thinking, how can I be different? They're just different. So the scene we're going to look at is them escaping to South America because they're on the run and they need to go to Bolivia. So the song actually is called South American Getaway, and which I always thought was sung by the Swingle Singers, a very famous a cappella group in the 60s, but no, it's the Ron Hicklin Singers. Ron Hicklin Singers, a group of LA people, part of the Wrecking Crew sometimes, and known for a lot of their background vocals on the Partridge Family recordings, and worked in the 60s, 70s, and 80s on TV. So they're the ones singing this. Let's just take a look at the scene so you know what I'm talking about.
Isn't that a pretty sight?
Very fun. Burt Bacharach said this is one of his favorite songs he's ever written. Is it Western sounding? No, it's not Western sounding at all. It's a jazz waltz with jazz chords and syncopation, and as you can tell, it's a vocalese. There's no words in it. They're using the voice as an instrument. I think it's really cool, really exciting. So again, he's scoring something not in the traditional way. So yeah, why does it work? I mean, yeah, it works now because looking back, looking back in history, it's like, how could it not be? But I wonder when they were watching it if they thought it worked, but it doesn't really matter now. Why don't we take a look at the scene without the music? So pretty exciting. I'd like for you to come up with a piece of music that I guess I just don't want Bonanza. Nothing wrong with Bonanza. We looked at David Rose, and that's a great that's great for that TV show. I wonder if we can, and it can sound Western. I just don't want a traditional Western song. I want you guys to think of a different song that could work. It could be a jazz song. It could be really any type of song. I don't want a cheesy spaghetti Western song or something that's, I know I'm being kind of picky and subjective. I'm trying to think, let's think like Burt Bacharach would think and see if we could throw in a different. Now, one thing that it has to have is movement to it, right? I mean, they're on a horse. Bacharach's got a waltz going, so a waltz automatically means it's going to be a faster tempo. So you can throw me anything. I just don't want it to look like a corny TV show. I guess that's what I'm saying. I want it to look like a film, and like a film. So if that makes sense, but you'll have some freedom. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be Western. It can be, but I don't want corny spaghetti Western. I don't want Bonanza. I don't want The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Music that you guys know that stuff. I want you to find other music. That's part of these exercises weekly, is that I want you to actually look and find other music instead of just Googling, YouTubing. Here, that's fine too. I mean, I used to do that in high school and college. That's fine too, but we're better than that. Okay, so get it into me by tomorrow. That's Butch, Cassidy and Sundance Kid. A lot of fun in that movie. Check it out. It's really, I recommend it. Okay, tomorrow it's gonna be fantastic. Don't know what it is yet, but it's gonna be fun. Okay, love you, miss you, and see you tomorrow. Bye.